Hi, it's Musolini, the merchant of success. Welcome again. I'm excited about this particular subject of unlocking your courage 2.0, because you see, the courageous rule the world. The courageous win the prizes. The courageous, take the lead, and you want to be in that state of courage through and through. And this subject of unlocking your courage is so powerful, is so important as people, because there are many things, I'm sure, that have held you back, or you've held yourself back because of shortage in courage. And that's what we want to address today. All right, so that is the framework I follow and when I'm teaching, and that is, I start with clarity in terms of defining what is it and why is it important. Then number two, we look at the mindsets. What are the mindsets required to be a success? Number three, what are the strategies required to make things happen? Number four, we look at the skill sets that are useful to bring those strategies to life. And finally, we look at mastery. How do you own and master the information shared? So let's start with the clarity. Now, when we talk about courage, here are some important definitions. That courage is not the absence of fear. Courageous people do feel the fear, but they are able to manage and overcome their fear so that it does not stop them from taking action. Yeah, so when I discovered that a couple of years ago when I was learning, I believe one of the US presidents, could have been Roosevelt, who said that courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of fear. So when I learned that, I was like, wow, that's powerful. It's not like these people we call brave or courageous, that they have zero fear, or that they don't fear anything, so to speak. No, they feel the fear and do it anyway. Actually, there is a title of that book. That should be the title, that feel the fear and do it anyway. That's courage. It's not that you don't have fear. To my knowledge, at least over 99.9999% of the people, they fear something. Okay. The question is, do you let that fear stop you, or you continue, or you move forward and make it happen, regardless of what's going on? Yes, Grace says feel the fear and do it anyway. Absolutely. Yeah, so the other quote from Nelson Mandela is my hero, by the way. And he said that I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. So oftentimes, the more I reflect on it, the biggest fear is not the thing that we fear. The biggest thing to overcome is the inner fear, that voice that tells us that negative things are going to happen. I'll give you an example. My little daughter, not little daughter, my 7-year-old daughter, just fears lizards. And unfortunately, she also got to know that someone told her that, big lizards in the trees and all that they're actually poisonous. That, I got to know. And so now when she sees a lizard in the house, she freaks out. And I'm here to propose to you that the biggest challenge is not the lizard, but it is the creation in her head of what that lizard could be, or what that lizard could do. So if you get what I've just shared, for me, I believe that's where the key is. It's not the thing, it is our thought, our creation, our imagination of the thing, the experience, that is the biggest challenge. It's the image we have, it's the imagination that we create that is of a biggest challenge to us in terms of mastering this notion of courage, not the thing, all right? So, and ultimately, just know that the battle is within, not out there. That's why one of my favorite quotes, it's an African proverb, If there's no enemy within, the enemy out there will do you no harm. So in essence, the wisdom in that quote is that it's the inner battle that is the biggest enemy, not the enemies out there we imagine, but that negative thought, that negative voice, that negative storytelling that you have is where the biggest battle is, my friend. And that's what we have to conquer. So why is this subject important? It helps you build your self-esteem and confidence, because if you're frozen by fear, you won't release your potential. You won't go out there in the world. So when I'm teaching confidence and self-esteem, it's one of the things we talk about. How do you then unlock your courage? So once you master to manage your fear, then becoming more confident, raising your self-esteem is 10 times easier. The other key is you need courage to face life, conquer your fears, and achieve your dreams. So it's not that, for example, during this session, I don't have some question marks and that sort of thing. But you know what? I have to face them and realize my dream of impacting the world anyway. So that's what courage does. Not that there are no doubts, not that it's purely 100% clean slate. But once you have that courage, then that's how you go after your dreams. And it doesn't have to be big dreams. It could be anything. It could be, because one of the areas I struggled with, as an example, for me personally, which I'll go a little deeper in under confidence and self-esteem in future, is I used to fear talking to ladies because I had a challenge of having received a negative response from a 14-year-old when I was about the same age bracket. And I made a conclusion that women don't like me. And so I started then projecting that conclusion, that history, to my present and the future. And so, and then I saw I could not talk to ladies. Even when I was at the university for 3 years, I could not. Until later, when I had to work on my confidence and self-esteem and uplift my courage, that did I start to face my fears boldly. Now, when I say to conquer your fears and achieve your dreams, it reminds me that indeed, during that time, I missed so many opportunities. I missed opportunities to date beautiful ladies. I recall, at the university, I didn't date, and my Cairo University, has some of the most beautiful ladies. And I recall up to now, this image is so clear in my head that when I got an opportunity, when someone recommended me to go to US for a couple of internships, there was this amazing Afro-American model-like tall lady. She was walking the opposite side. She was coming towards me. I was walking towards her. And she was looking at me like she's interested. Of course, I was interested, but I could not gather the courage to say good morning or good evening. I don't know. It could have been afternoon. I could not gather the courage to even say good afternoon. So up to now, the image of that lady is in my head. So the point I'm making is we lose out dreams and we lose out opportunities when we do not conquer our fears. I recall when I was at the university, I was at Makerere University, I was very vocal. I had, my name was quite known in some circles. So meaning I had a starting point to launch my career as a guild president. But I didn't. Why? I had some fears. I had negative stories I was telling myself, like I am poor, I don't have money, how will I manage, will I what? I just lacked the courage, or I did not have enough courage. Having said that, I do not regret looking back, because I could have gotten into politics, which is not my game really, as I look back now. Then I was a political animal, but now it helps you to be optimistic also. When you are courageous, you have this knowing, feeling, and belief that things are going to be better, that things will work out. When you lack the courage, you become pessimistic. You imagine that things won't work out. And yet we know that optimism will take you very far. Also, making courage a part of your life equips you with the ability to empower others to do the same. So right now, one of the areas I help people in is overcoming their fears, overcoming their self-esteem and confidence, because I have overcome that part of my life that I struggled with for many, many years. So just know that when you become courageous, when you overcome your fears, you also become a gift, an inspiration, a motivation to the rest who might be struggling with the same. No wonder there's that quote in that when you liberate yourself, you liberate others, you give others permission to shine. So when you shine and demonstrate that indeed you can be a person of courage, then other people pick a leaf. Not only do they pick a leaf even without you speaking, so when they come to you, you can relate, you can share. Like there's a lady I've been coaching the last 7 weeks or so, and she told me that she has boosted her confidence and self-esteem, like from a level 4 when we met, now to a level 7. So out of 10. So that's the beauty. Here are examples of courageous acts. Helen Keller, between 1880 to 1968, she was both deaf and blind, but she strived to uplift the treatment of the deaf. So just think about that. Someone is deaf and blind, and yet decides to campaign to uplift the betterment of people who are like her. Think about that. Nelson Mandela, my hero, 1918 to 2013, jailed for 27 years for fighting against apartheid in South Africa. He was released and became the first president of an apartheid-free South Africa. The key thing is he had to be courageous. It takes, undescribable courage to say no to a whole government, to say no to a whole regime. But even more so, it takes even more courage and boldness to move out of 27 years of incarceration and you decide not to revenge. That's the purest form of courage. That's the purest forms, that's one of the purest forms of humanity. So that's one of the reasons he's my hero, not just staying in jail, but who he was after being jailed for all those 27 years. So the question is, if someone who is deaf and blind could stand up for the rest of humanity, someone who knows that he's stepping up against a whole machinery and institution and still says no, what else can you do? What else could you stand for? Martin Luther King, one of my favorite personalities, 1929 to 1968, a civil rights activist who denounced racial oppression. He also knew that there were so many people against his stand. There are some powerful personalities who are against his stand, and he knew that he was fighting against a huge tornado, but he stood for what he believed in. So how about you? So for me, these personalities become a reminder in terms of, if they can do this, how much can I do? What else could I do? What else could you become? Because you might find that for you, what you're against, or fighting against, or standing up against, is so minuscule. So for me, it was really talking to ladies. Now, when I compare to these three personalities, that fear is, I mean, here they were risking death. Some of these, they were risking their own lives, but they stood up. So Goreto was asking, can courage be surmounting huge things? Just wondering. Well, no, not really. I was just giving you this example, such that examples of these bigger challenges, so that then when you compare it to some of the smaller things, then you're like, well, duh, this I should do. So I was using these personalities on purpose. It doesn't have to be big. It takes courage for me to just stand here in front of you and believe that I will offer value. All right? And say it with certainty. Yeah, that's some kind of courage. It takes courage to do that. So it doesn't have to be a big thing. So courage could be your own territory. So whatever it is that you're surmounting, it could be just to learn how to drive a car. Yeah, it takes courage, my friend. It takes courage to go talk to a stranger, okay? It takes courage to go talk to a stranger, someone you don't know, and you go and start a conversation. So, all right, now let's continue now to the mindset. What are the mindsets required to unlocking your courage? Here are 4 mindsets to give you a good start. Number 1 is success and achievement are outside your comfort zone. This concept of discomfort keeps rearing its head, and it's on purpose. It's not by accident. Thing is, you need courage to embark on uncomfortable ventures which foster growth in many aspects of life. Jumping into a swimming pool to swim. Because in 1990, when I was in senior 1, I almost drowned in River Rizi. So I was gripped by that phobia of water for many, many, many years. But it required courage for me to do something uncomfortable, to get in a swimming pool and swim and learn how to swim again. Because I was still at the learning stage then, 1990. So, but then that's where growth is, doing the uncomfortable. You have to stretch, and it takes courage. And the other key thing is, there are people who may disown or just discredit, I don't know whether that's the word, what you're doing. I say, that is a small thing. No, if before it was a big deal for you or you feared, congratulate yourself that you have overcome your fears, that you have stepped up in courage. So once again, courage does not have to be a big thing. It is what is big to you, okay? So for example, for me speaking in front of people, no big deal now, but it could be a big deal to you. So then it becomes a courageous move from your part. So do not let anyone define for you what courage is exactly. In your context, you need to figure out what it means for you to be courageous. So for me, speaking in front of people, in a group of people, because I've been doing it for many years, it's not a big deal now, but for you it could be. And there are things that you're doing whereby it could be a big deal for me. It would take a lot of courage for me to do what you're doing. So I would like to put that distinction in that something uncomfortable is what is outside your comfort zone. And therefore you have to figure out, you have to say, you know what, I choose to call on my courageous self to step outside my comfort zone. This is one of the best questions you can ask yourself. What is the worst case scenario if I do it? And the question is, can I deal with the worst case scenario? Will it hurt me? Will I learn from it? Will it kill me? Now, if someone had taught me this question when I was a teenager, when I was in my early 20s, then I wouldn't have struggled with the idea of talking to ladies. Because what's the worst that could have happened? Them saying no, not responding, and so what? Would it kill me? No. But I did not have that frame of thinking. I did not have that way of looking at life then. No one gave me this question. And that's why I'm giving it to you as a gift. So this strategy, which is also used in risk management, is to ask yourself, can I deal with the worst case scenario? So that's why, for example, when you're thinking about, for example, if you're going to, that's why when you're thinking about going into very risky business ventures, let's say crypto currencies as an example, you only put in money, the advice, the standard advice is you put in money which you can afford to lose, meaning it could go. So meaning if it can go and you feel you can live with that fear, then it's much easier for you to step in. But if you feel that the worst can happen is that all your money may be wiped away and you cannot live with that, then don't. So once you adopt this mindset, for example, I'll tell you how powerful this is. Let's just suppose you fear going to your boss to ask them for a pay rise. What's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that they will say no. The question is, can you live with a no? Yes. Well, you might say, they might start looking at me badly. Well, can you live with that? If you can live with that, go ahead. If you can't, then don't. People in sales, what's the worst thing that can happen if you're calling a prospect? They will say no, they might abuse you. Now, can you live with an abuse? Personally, I can. Then if you can't, then it won't stop you from calling. The other key question to remind yourself is, will I learn from it? If the answer is yes, then go ahead. But the core test is, if you can think about all the possible worst scenarios and you feel and believe that you can live with those, then it gives you the mandate, the stepping stone, the energy, the frame to step up and take that courageous action. Remember again, courage is not the absence of fear. It's the mastery of fear. It's you choosing to overcome your fear. It's you choosing to do it anyway. Just like the title of the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. You feel the fear and do it anyway. The third strategy is I beg your pardon, strategy, but mindset is the adult in the house mindset. Think about it. There were situations in your life where you looked up to the adult to sort them out or to sort an issue out. Now you are the adult. At least all of us attending live or watching this. The situation is difficult, but it is you to sort it out. It's called the adult mindset. When my daughters call me, say, daddy, cockroach, then I have to step up. Oh, daddy, come and help me. Now, whatever it is, I must step up because I'm the adult. Whatever the situation is, if they call for help, I have to step up and show that I'm daddy. I have to defend my daughters. I am the adult. Guess what? You are the adult in your life. Whatever you're facing, you are the adult in your life. You have to step up. Say, you know what? I choose to be an adult, not a baby. That's why sometimes you hear people using terms like cry baby, because they feel you're not stepping up as an adult. A baby might cry, an adult steps up. Crying is for babies, courage is for adults. I like that. I like the sound of that. All right. Now, again, I'm not saying crying just for the sake of crying. I'm saying, just giving up or stepping back or not stepping up for power. That's for kids or for children. But you as an adult, you have to step up. So in the same way, and today I was talking to my coach and mentor. We're talking about being an adult, and he gave me some ideas on being an adult, what being an adult is. These are some statements he told me, that adults must take 100% responsibility for their life. Adults follow through and complete things. There's no procrastination for adults. They 100% take care of themselves. They must love themselves unconditionally. They work for God. They connect with God 100%. They follow the mission and purpose for life. They have their emotions balanced. They have realistic goals. They live in gratitude, joy, and divine love. They are fully self-expressed with themselves 100%, and they must live in integrity. So that's an adult, fully self-expressed. So meaning you express yourself regardless. You are amidst a conversation, and then you're thinking, yeah, if I say this, they might think I'm stupid or I'm foolish. The question is, can you live with that? Or can you at least learn from that? An adult steps up and says, you know what, I will express myself anyway. If I'm wrong, at least I will learn that I was wrong, and then I will learn what is right. The fourth mindset, which is useful, is no failures but lessons. When you take courageous actions, you either benefit from them or learn. This is something I've practiced for years and has served me tremendously. So in those moves that I make, I tell myself, listen, I either get what I want or I learn from that experience. And that, my friend, is a very powerful frame to come from. Because once you look at that, then you know that there is no loss in that engagement. You either get what you want or you get the lesson. Either way, you are ahead of the curve. So once you get that idea, say, no, I'm going to go into this interaction. I'm going to start this business. Either I will succeed or at least I will learn something along the way. But either way, I'm going to go. I'm going to start. I'm going to go into this, I'm going to talk to this stranger. They might give me the job or they may not. Either way, at least I'll learn about the company, or if the bare minimum, at least I would have put my name out there. They will know that I'm there. There are some bids I will tell you, there are some bids we've gotten into as Success Africa, and I tell people, but our chances are really very low because we don't have so much experience here. Tell them, no, we have not. What's the worst? The worst that can happen is they will know that we exist. And then, of course, there are areas where we excel, and then they'll say next time they might consider us right there. So that's the key thing. You either benefit directly, you get what you want, or you learn from it. So once you hold those twin forces, those two twin friends of yours, benefit, lesson. If you move with that, either way, in whichever the ball falls, it will land in one of those courts. And once it lands there, boom, you're ahead of the game. Cool. Now let's look at 5 strategies for living a courageous life. Number 1 is courage out of necessity. You see, you have ambitions, you have aspirations. You must achieve them. The difficult steps must be taken. Carve out why and where certain actions are necessary and build up enough why. Okay, so this is what I mean by courage out of necessity. Let's just suppose you're a father. I mean, once you have children, it's a necessity that the children must eat, that you must take care of them. So you have to use taking care of your children as a big why. You finished university, so you have to find work. So you tell yourself, you know what? You finished university, now it's time to find work, period. Time to work, period. The courage out of necessity is for you to remind yourself that, look, this is the situation and I must step up regardless because the context calls it so, calls for that. Context means that the situation you're in, you have to be courageous. It's out of necessity that you have to be. You have to face your fears. There's no going back. And what you could do also is to create context where you know there's no turning back. One of that, of course, is burning your bridges, so to speak, or making public pronouncements. General Cortez, I believe they are going to cross over to Mexico, and I believe that's the context. And they were on a ship, and there were a small band of army men, I believe hundreds, and they are going to face an army of thousands. So looking at these fellows shaking, General Cortez just commanded to set the ship on fire. And he told these guys, look, guys, we either win or we die out here. There's no turning back. Guess what? They won the war. It was courage out of necessity. So it might mean that you create conditions of burning your ship. There's no turning back. Then the courage out of necessity will be automatic. What is it that you need to do to make sure that there is no turning back? I've made mention of how many days these sessions are going to take, at what particular time. There is no turning back. I have to appear. So, and then that's level one. Level two is to ask yourself, why? Why is this important? Why must you step up? Why must you do this? You generate as many reasons as possible why you must do something. Then that will be like adding pieces of wood into the fire of your courage. The other strategy is courage for inspiration. Your people are looking up to you. Your family expects better from you. Your children must see you succeed. Remember, you're a hero to some people. Live up to it. That is a very challenging call. And yet I also know it's a very powerful call. One of my desires is that my girls can look up to me and say, I'm proud of my dad. There are many areas I know that I've lived up to their expectation, and there are a few areas I feel I need to step up so they can be inspired even more. I liked it when my 7-year-old recently said, but Daddy, for you don't fear anything. I was like, yeah. Of course, it's small things that she fears. She says me not fearing. But I like her holding that mindset. Oh, Daddy doesn't fear anything. So then over time, she should learn not to fear. Meaning she should to learn that courage is important. So once you discover certain things, then you know that by living to a certain standard, you are an inspiration to someone. You're a manager, then you shouldn't be quaking in your pants. You should appear, even when your stomach is shaking, that's the time to step up and be strong. Because you know that if you crumble, then the whole team crumbles. Then if you crumble, your children will crumble. So just that reminder alone of inspiring people, inspiring your family, inspiring your team members, inspiring the community, inspiring your students, inspiring your siblings, that will push you to do things that you wouldn't have otherwise done. So meaning you hold a bigger frame, you look beyond you look towards the bigger picture to inspire the rest. Number three, the third strategy is the cost-benefit analysis. Weigh what you may lose versus what you may benefit from that action. So I know that if I knew that, for example, if I did not follow through on this series that I'm doing, I had more to lose. I had a lot to lose and a lot to gain. It's cost-benefit analysis. Again, talking about worst case scenario, I was thinking, okay, the worst that can happen is, well, I've inspired someone. That's the worst that can happen. At least every session, I know someone will learn something. And that, to me, I also know that one transformed life is priceless, because I know my life is priceless, and so is everyone's life. And someone touched me by inspiring me, by challenging me, by pushing me. And that's why I love the work that I do. So I know that the work I do is priceless to individuals, because I know that those who have stepped into my life, the gifts they have given me, the gifts of wisdom, the gifts of insight, they have been priceless. So for me, that's the benefit I look up to. And I know that if I don't, then it's very costly, not only to me, but to humanity. So what's your cost benefit analysis? It could mean that if you don't start that business, jobs won't be created. Or if you close your business, that jobs will be lost. There are some people as we speak right now, and some of those people on this call, they are hanging in there amidst all these challenges because they look at the cost of closing shop. They know how many families, how many thousands of people they would affect by them closing shop. That's cost benefit analysis. Not only to you, but the people around you and the people you affect. What is the cost? What's the benefit? Then once you notice that the cost, that the benefit is much bigger than the cost, then that will push you to take certain actions. You'll become more courageous. Also, what people forget is that courage can be looked at as a skill. As a skill gap, I beg your pardon. You see, we fear to do some things because we simply don't have the talent or knowledge or skill. You see, information gives you courage. Knowing how to do something gives you courage. Learning from those who have done it before is important. Learn the trade. I'm in front of you right now because I know I can do this. I know I have the insight to share. I have prepared. I've paid my dues for over 2 decades to be able to stand in front of you. So that gives me enough courage. I've learned to communicate. I've learned to present. I've learned to present content in a way that people understand and also uplifts people. I've taken over 20 years to study this. Again, you don't have to take over 20 years like I have. And some of us may have to, and other people in this room have more experience than I do, by the way. That should also give you an insight. My encouragement also is you do not need to. The other thing about courage is also you do not have to be the best of the best to step up. I started doing this work when I was 26, full time, 26 years old. So as I'm talking about 20 years now, that shouldn't discourage some of us who are younger in their trade. Having said that, it means you have to invest a lot of time, energy, money, focus to be able to stand and know, yes, I can do this. That boosts your courage. Because it's also not good to just have false confidence or false courage. No, yeah, I can do this. It doesn't say we can do anything. Yeah, but you need some preparation also. Go do some reading, do some study, invest some money in coaching. You had me, I was talking to my coach earlier today. I've been doing that for over 6 years now. Is it 6 or 7? We are going into the 7th year now. So the point I'm raising is when you work on your skill sets, when you work on your abilities diligently, it gives you a stepping stone to be courageous. You had me talk about struggling or lacking courage to speak to ladies. Guess what? I had to study books, go through courses, to work on my confidence, to learn to interact with strangers and all that. So then I started building step by step. But you see, I had to work on my skill to communicate to people. The other strategy is the massive action strategy. You see, there is power in taking massive action. This gives you the opportunity of no return. Not only an opportunity of no return, but also an opportunity to learn. That area that you fear, that you don't feel comfortable with, take a lot of action towards that end. Again, if I may use the analogy of me fearing to speak to ladies as an example, is I learned, and then over time I learned that, you know what, go talk to as many ladies as possible. Say hello, to at least overcome the fear of talking to ladies. Now for you, it could be talking to strangers to make a sales call. It could be to apply for a job. Go knock on people's doors, or make a phone call, or send an email, or ask for a Zoom meeting, whatever it is. But take massive action, take lots of action through that massive action intent and practice. You will learn a lot. Then you're also passing on a message, and this is the biggest benefit. You're telling your brain that it is okay, my friend. You're passing on a message. No one, it's okay. It will not kill you. You're fine. Yes. It's okay to go speak in front of your team. It's okay to speak in front of strangers. It's okay to go forth and, ask someone whether they can hire you, or whether they can buy something that you have, or whether someone can buy your idea, or to stand up and share an idea where you think the organization should go, and you're sharing it with your CEO or MD. You do it over and over again, then over time, you're passing on a message to your brain that it's okay to speak in front of your colleagues. It's okay to speak to strangers. It's okay to feel the fear and do it anyway. Guess what? You're still alive. You feared many things, you did them anyway, but guess what? You're still here, alive and kicking. So you do that, then over time, this becomes your second nature, your default setting. Cool. So looks like the issue around massive action, there's need for more clarity. Yes, so massive action, the value is that indeed, as you do something over and over again, you overcome you're passing on a message to your brain. So Godfrey had a good example, that can I relate massive action to you starting to swim a lot so as to avert the previous fear you had in swimming? Absolutely. So then, like me who used to fear swimming, then by doing it over time, I'm training my body, my psychology, that it's okay to swim. Now, of course, when you're doing these things, also you can take it step by step. I believe in biting small pieces at a time before you go for the biggie, so to speak. But the key thing is, the more you do something, the more you become attuned to that. I'm told, and some of us who are for some of us, in case we have a medical doctor, you can confirm this if this is not true, or you can advise in it. I'm told, for example, over time, the body, like say certain viruses, when it gets exposed to viruses or certain organisms over time, the body readjusts and strengthens and lives to know how to fight and live with the so-called viruses, so to speak. The body readjusts. So we are wired that way, not only at a physical level, but also at a psychological level. So what you're doing is you're exposing yourself to this other attack or challenge to show, hey, who is the boss here? Oh, I love that mindset. So the mindset should always be to say, no, I'm going to show you who is boss. Is it the fear of speaking or the Ethan, the dreamer? Ethan, because Ethan as an individual is much bigger than the fear. So it's to ask, who is the bigger boss? The fear of speaking or Ethan, who is an unlimited being? So then you decide and say, you know what, me, the unlimited being, choose to be the boss. I choose to own this. I choose to be in charge. And this is how you have to talk to yourself sometimes. There are those negative voices that I talked about earlier, that the enemy within, that if there's no enemy within, the enemy out there will do you no harm. Sometimes you have to talk to yourself like that. said, I choose to be the boss in this situation. I choose to be the commander. I choose to be the captain of my soul. I choose to be the leader, not the follower. I choose power over fear. I choose to stand strong and tall as a child of God, not as a weakling. I choose to be courageous today. I choose to stand in courage, not cries. I choose courage today. I choose to speak with courage. I choose to think courageous thoughts. I choose to take courageous steps in my life. I choose courage today. I choose that my third name shall be brave and courage. I choose that. Do you know my daughters speak affirmations before they go to sleep? And my daughter recently added this other affirmation of I am brave. And I was like, yay. So you can choose to step into bravery and say, I choose to be courageous. Yes, I know I am worried. I know I'm concerned. I know there are fears. I know I have some doubts. I know I've failed before. I know, but you know what? That's history. That's an imagination. I choose in this present moment to stand in courage. If that makes sense to you, just type the word sense. What I've just said. Now let's go to the skill set. Here are the 5 steps that will help you to unlock your courage. 1. What would you do if you knew failure wasn't an option? You see, one of the things that I see, and these conversations, I sometimes have them with my 7-year-old daughter. She's a perfectionist, so she wants everything to go her way. And sometimes she says, but what if I fail? What if? So those are conversations I'm still having with her, and hoping and praying that we will work things out. And I will tell you that I recall when I was still at the university, I got a job in sales, and it was 100% commission sales based. It was sale advertising. And I went to 2 or 3 businesses. I didn't succeed. So sometimes I would just sit there on the bench, do nothing, and just imagining that after all, if I go there, I'm going to fail anyway. So I was just imagining playing a movie of failure in my head. Had I played a movie of what I would do if I knew failure wasn't an option, if I knew that I was going for success, then I would have stepped up. But unfortunately, I lost that opportunity for, it must have been a stint for 2 or 3 months. I didn't make any sale, unfortunately, as you can imagine. And so I was in my very early 20s. So these things, these things I teach, I've lived both extreme ends. So that's what gives me the authority to speak about these subjects. So I know that the first step is to ask yourself, what would you do if you knew failure wasn't an option? So meaning, if you knew you would succeed, what would you do? Then you would get up. Then you would write that proposal. Then you would stand up to speak. Then you would start that something. The second step is to identify your limiting beliefs. So for me, one of the limiting beliefs I used to struggle with was, I'm from a poor family, I'm a poor kid, they don't know me. And, at one time I used to look at myself as this kid who didn't have good muscles to look sexy. Oh, these beliefs we plant in our heads. So you have to be so how you identify your limiting beliefs is really about those negative voices you tell yourself over and over again. That's a limiting belief. Because once you know what limits you, then you can find a way to fight it or to resolve it. But if you don't know what is limiting you at a thought process, at a belief level, I beg your pardon, then you won't know how to proceed. So you need to find out what those limiting beliefs are. And a belief is something that you've told yourself over and over again to literally believing it to be true, even when it's not. So what's that? Then, once you discover what that limiting belief is, beg your pardon, oh, sorry, just a second. Okay, here it is. So then you need to reframe your limiting stories, because a belief over time is really a bunch of stories you're telling yourself. So the question is, how can you reframe your limiting stories? Let me give you an example. So when I was overcoming, again, just to keep the storyline consistent, to use the story of me and fearing to speak to ladies. So for me, I held the belief that because this lady refused to talk to me when I was 14, therefore women do not like me. That's a story I was telling myself. So instead, I reframed it to be, look, that was her choice and she had a choice. And that does not mean that all the ladies out there don't like me. As a matter of fact, I'm sure there is a lady out there who would love to engage with me, or who would find me interesting and exciting and sexy. So that's what I started telling myself. So I reframed the story, not as a confirmation. Her rejecting me was not a definition of me. Someone rejecting you is not a definition of who you are. They are making an alternative choice. You see how I'm reframing? All right? Because some of us have been rejected, and now you've owned that as an identity, and it's limiting you, it's driving you stone cold, and you can't take action. Someone told you, you're a bad performer. And now that's a story you've been telling yourself, that I'm a bad performer, and therefore you cannot apply for bigger jobs, you cannot ask for a pay rise, you cannot go for bigger opportunities. And I'm here to tell you that you can reframe that story in a way that serves you. Again, that's the key thing. You reframe your limiting beliefs in a way that serves you. So you could reframe that and say, you know what? Well, that was her opinion. Or you could say, you know what? Well, that was a wake-up call. And now I'm working on myself to be an extraordinary performer. Yeah, because it could be indeed true that you are not performing. But remember, you also have to separate an action or behavior to an identity. You did not perform. You are not a non-performer. Non-performer is an identity. You did not perform is a behavior. Now, you need to get that distinction, because if you do, then it will liberate you. If you don't, then you'll be challenged. So, step one again, what would you do if you knew failure was not enough? Step two is you identify your limiting beliefs. Step three, you reframe those beliefs. You start telling yourself another story. You start telling yourself a different movie, a new movie, an inspiring movie. You craft an inspiring movie, because then that movie is what will influence your thoughts and behaviors. Then next step is you equip yourself with enough details. You equip yourself with enough information. You equip yourself with enough skill set. You empower yourself. That's the key. That's better languaging. You empower yourself with strategies, tactics, ways of being and ways of speaking, ways of moving, such that then you are you're the man, you're the woman that can be called courageous. So you equip yourself with whatever is necessary at both a strategic and tactical level, both internally and externally. Then step five, which is very, very crucial, is you create an enabling community. And that's why I was keen for this as a family to be active in the Facebook group, because then you have a community of people who believe in this work, who believe in you, who are positive, because you cannot do these kinds of things unless you're positive. So you need to create an enabling community, people who believe in you, people who will inspire you. And when I say enabling community, I don't mean people who just only say nice things. I mean people who can celebrate with you, and also at the same time challenge you when you're falling short. Because what is a sin? A sin just means missing the mark. That's what a sin is, missing the mark, falling short. That's what sin is. So when you have such a group of people who will remind you, who say, no, you don't need to fear, continue, move. And then when they look at your presentation, say, okay, that's great that you moved. And next time you need to tweak your presentation in a different way. So you give them that tool. I mean, you give them that opportunity. And then the other key is, which I hinted on earlier, is you take massive action consistently. What do I mean consistently? If there is something that you fear, if you can do it on a daily basis, for example, when, like I told you the earlier, how when I was fearing to talk to the ladies, for me, then the action was, see a lady, say hello, at least engage. So you do it on a daily basis, not something you do when you feel like. You do it because you have to, because your life is worth it. You do it because you want to become a writer, then you write every day because you know your life is worth it. This is part of your dream. You know that you fear speaking in front of meetings, then you push yourself. You make a debt with yourself. You make a promise to yourself that for every meeting you raise your hand, you feel the fear, but you do it anyway. Then over time, you're training yourself. Then you know that you fear making phone calls. You make a promise to yourself. You make a date with yourself and say, every day, I'm going to make 5 phone calls. When I was running a program, the 90-day sales and marketing challenge, that was the target. Every day, you had to reach out to 5 new prospects every single day. And many people got lots of breakthroughs. When you do something every day, then over time, it becomes second nature. It becomes your default state. You see, some people's default state, and some of us could be listening in now, the default state is that of fear. And I'm saying if you're to have a default state of power, of courage, it is something you practice, not something you just think about. It's not something you just dream about. It's not something you just pray about. All those things are important, and I'm saying you have to do them. Now, the mixed psychological way of that also is that I would like to share with you, take that massive action consistently, is play a movie in your brain as often as possible, seeing yourself taking that action over and over and over again. You rehearse the results in advance. You rehearse the behavior in advance. Then over time, you're sending signals to your brain, say, you know what, when you're in this situation, this is how I want you to behave. Then we know, according to science and psychology, that what you rehearse in your brain, you will finally have it out there in life. That what you have in your mind, you'll finally have it in your hands. What you rehearse in your brain, you'll finally experience it in your actual life. So that's what I used to do. Whether it was to speak to crowds or to speak to strangers, I would rehearse these movies in my life over and over again. I would be tentative sometimes, but you know what? I kept going on a daily basis. I would go out there, speak to strangers, and right now I can speak to literally any stranger because I played the game enough times. So promise me that if you take nothing away from everything I've said, you know that it's Ralph Waldo Emerson who said that do the thing that you fear, and the death of fear shall be certain. Do the thing that you fear, and the death of fear shall be certain. So you need to be focused and say, this thing I fear, I'm going to do it on a daily basis, or I'm going to go out there and step into the swimming pool. I'm going to get a coach. You could get conditions that will help you to overcome that thing, whatever it is that you fear that has been holding you back. All right? Cool. All right, let's talk about mastery. So number 1, create 70 days of being brave. See, you need to create this habit. We know that it takes at least 67 days to create a new habit. The old research of 21 days, no, is not accurate. So, you know, recent studies show us that it's actually 70 days of being brave that will push you to have it as a second, to have something to be part of your second nature. So practice that. Choose whatever that decision is. Number 2 is list the things you have wanted to do but you fear to do. Write them down. Create that list, right? And then from that list, pick at least one item. Say, you know what? The next 2 months or the next 3 months, I'm going to focus on this one item. That's the key, by the way. Instead of chasing so many rabbits, The Turkish proverb is that the man who chases two rabbits catches none. So I would propose that once you list these things, just pick like 1 or 2 max, and then say for the next 90 days, or for the next 70 days, 70 to 90 days, I'm going to focus on these things. I'm going to focus, for example, on talking to a stranger every day, and also, speak up whenever we have a meeting. Next is get an accountability partner. Let's just suppose you want to be able to speak in staff meetings. So what you do is you speak to Jane, your friend, and get someone you know who's going to be very honest with you. I say, Jane, every time we go into a meeting, I'm going to speak up. And if I don't, please pinch me, or if I don't, I promise I'll give you this amount of money. If I don't, or if I don't, I'll be the one to take you out for lunch. Something, you get that accountability partner. And then with the accountability partner, actually you could do a courage accountability group. And then you say, you know what, every day I'm going to do something that I fear doing. Next is then use the strategies given above to implement these resolutions. The strategies I gave you before, not above, but the strategies I gave you before, how can you use them to make sure that you practice this, all right? So that's going to be the gist of the matter, all right? Now, you're watching this recording, so just pause and ask yourself, what did you find most useful in this presentation? And how are you going to implement the lessons moving forward in your life, career, and business, right? So that's what you're going to discuss in your breakout rooms for the next like 5 to 6 minutes. That's the question you'll be discussing with your team.